One of the things that I'm doing on this second week of my trek out is I am subbing for a friend here at school while she is out of the country, actually. It is my planning time right now, so I'm trying to get ahead for myself in my own classes for when we come back from trek out. And I'm making out the calendar of what we're going to do, and I'm trying to figure out what exactly am I going to teach. In the previous episode, I posed the question, what should we be teaching in school? If you did not see that discussion, go to the link above and look at that short video and comment if you haven't already done so before you watch this one. And that's a huge issue. There's just so much that can be involved in even answering that question. So I'm going to take a couple different episodes to sort of touch on several different issues. That goes into what should we be teaching in school. The thing that I want to address today is the difference between standards and curriculum. Because so many times those two things get confused as one and the same, and they're really not. And it's when standards and curriculum get confused as the same thing that we get all kinds of arguments, we get all kinds of fights, we get misleading political ads, we get all of that sort of stuff. So, briefly, standards are what it is that we want to teach, and curriculum is how we're going to go about doing it. So here's a great example of my current situation. Here is the standard that I have spent all of third quarter teaching and wrapping up when we track back in. This is from science. The standard is understand the processes, structures, and functions of living organisms that enable them to survive, reproduce, and carry out the basic functions of life. That's the standard. And that essentially means that we understand how cells work, what are the cellular structures, what are the organs and organ systems in a living creature. That enables it to live. The curriculum piece of that will be everything that I have done in class to help my students learn those things about cells, about organ systems. So they've taken notes. They have labeled diagrams. They have created their own diagrams. We have dissected chicken wings. In a couple of weeks, when they come back in, we're going to dissect the frog. We've had a microscope lab where they've looked at microcellular organisms to try to see the organelles within a cell. So this is the curriculum. This is the how. And curriculum can be a funny thing. Lots of money is spent on curriculum to make it easier to teach certain standards. Larger school districts, one like I'm in, Wake County, they can write the entire curriculum for you for almost any class if they decided to, just to make that task easier for the teacher, so that the teacher doesn't have to sit and decide what are the best activities, what are the best ways to present this material. There's still some of that has to go into play, and not every teacher will follow that curriculum to the letter, but it's there as a resource. And if you're an elementary school teacher and you have 7 different subject areas you have to teach to a group of 5 to 10-year-olds, it's really helpful to have all of that stuff done for you. To bring this whole curriculum versus standards discussion to an end, standards are what we teach, and they are usually worded in a very general fashion. Curriculum is how we go about teaching it. Standards are determined on a state level. Curriculum is determined on a local level, many times on a county level, a school district level, but even within each individual school, there can be some curriculum decisions made depending upon the money available or depending upon how free-spirited the individual teacher is in each classroom. When we're talking about what we should be teaching in schools, we need to be teaching kids how to solve problems and how to recover from failure. You know, the content, that's secondary in my opinion. Information is free. Information is everywhere. You can just about Google anything that you want to. I just want to wrap up this whole discussion about standards versus curriculum. And one other piece that needs to be brought into play as far as what it is that we're going to teach in schools, whether we should be teaching it or not. But it all comes down to, what does that test look like at the end of the year? Because we can have a standard, a very generically worded standard, and a local school system can decide we're going to teach it in this fashion using these materials, or each individual teacher can actually be given the freedom to do that. The bottom line is, at the end of the year, your students are going to have to take a test. That test is going to cover very specific content. And so that right there is what determines what we end up teaching in class. We say that the tests are worded according to the standards, and that's one advantage of Common Core, of being nationally adopted by almost all of the 50 states, is that at least we know we have the same standards in each place. And there's, without giving you too many boring details, there is an actual consortium of states that are developing tests. The plan is that every state is taking the same test so that we can compare apples to apples. We know that our kids are going to be tested on certain things, so we have to make sure that we cover certain things. That's the sad part of education, and it's the reality of things, and that really determines what it is that we teach in class, what we teach in schools. So looking back on all of this, I feel like I've created a slight mischaracterization. The test doesn't determine what we teach in school. It really doesn't, because the test is supposed to be designed according to the standards. So it's really the standards, along with a little bit of influence from the curriculum, that tells us what we're supposed to be teaching in class. Because ideally, the best way to design a lesson is to determine how you want to assess it first. You design your test, your assessment first, and then you go back and decide how you're going to teach it. It's what we call understanding by design. And we hope that those tests we take at the end of every year is a reflection of just such a thing. Let's live in an ideal world for a moment. Forget about tests. Forget about end of the year exams. Forget about all of the other accountability measures that we put in there. What do we want our students to learn? What content do we want them to have mastered? What information do we want them to have? What skills do we want them to have when they leave elementary school, when they leave middle school, when they leave high school? Regardless of what content, what facts we are teaching in our schools, we better be teaching our kids how to solve problems. We better be teaching them how to think creatively, how to communicate and collaborate, because without that, they are not going to succeed, and we as a society aren't either. I really would appreciate your comments below and your thoughts on all of that. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. As always, give somebody a reason to hope and learn something new every day.